Welcome to Petronoia, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the energy debate. Hosted by Dan Romito, this show takes complex energy issues, strips away the agendas, and delivers clear fact-based insights. Whether you're an industry expert or simply looking for a balanced perspective, Petronoia brings clarity to the conversation. Each episode, Dan breaks down key topics, from U.S. energy independence to global policy impacts, focusing on the facts rather than the rhetoric, helping listeners make sense of the energy landscape. This is Petronoia, where we separate fact from fiction to fuel-informed discussions.
Welcome to Petronoia. I'm your host, Dan Romito. I'm thrilled to be joined with two people who are doing fascinating things in the broader realm of energy. We have Ahmad Eldemerdash and Ghazal Izadi. Once again, my name is Dan, so it's hard to screw up names. Just to get into it, I'm fascinated by y'all's background, right? I always like doing this thing, like, how did you get here? So Ahmad, maybe we'll start with you. In terms of where you are today, give me a brief backdrop of how you got to be where you're currently at.
Good morning, Dan, and good morning, Ghazal. Thank you for inviting me here. It's lovely to be on this show, and I'm excited, actually, from what I've heard about the show. So
setting the bar really high there.
Yeah. Where it all started. I'm an engineer, so I studied engineering. Nothing to do with energy, nothing to do with anything. And I joined the energy domain by coincidence, really. Just was looking for an engineering job, and I just fell in love, and I loved it. So started in the oil and gas, and moved upward and sideward, and 3 years ago, I got the opportunity to work on the new energy side of Baker Hughes, and I didn't think twice. It was a great opportunity. Still energy, and yet it has an impact on where we want to take the world forward, the earth forward. It looks after the environment. It's in line with all what my daughters wants to see, is like looking after the atmosphere, looking after the earth, looking after the environment. So here I am. So very passionate about energy and very passionate about low carbon energy, and I believe they are not in conflict, right? So that's where my role today is, leading the climate technology solution for Baker Hughes, which is an energy technology company. We are basically trying to rewrite the energy equation, linking the energy demand of the world to the industrial outcome. And my role is how to make all of this in low carbon solution.
Love it. And then Ghazal, you're an entrepreneur by trade, so you have an equally fascinating story as well.
No, I mean, it's an honor. Thank you so much. I was started with mathematics, so I was a mathematician. And then by chance, I came to this engineering world and be a reservoir engineer, petroleum engineer, which is I graduated and got my PhD from Penn State. And so I started with Baker Hughes for 13 years, and then we started this company, this next generation geothermal company. I did my PhD around geothermal engineering. And then moved to the other side, which was unconventional shale revolution, which was started back in 2005. And I grew up in that market and learning about the technology, how really unconventional requires different technology and make it more economically viable during the time. And I think this is our story about geothermal today. So this next gen technologies is really going to change because, as Ahmad said, the demand is high. The time to power is now. And we have a totally different universe of customer, right? This hyperscaler data center and what we need to provide them in time, and firm, clean, reliable energy, which geothermal is ticking all the box. So that's my story.
I mean, so Ahmad, one of the things that you briefly touched upon, but I love that you did. So I was fortunate enough to go to Baker Hughes annual meeting, and Lorenzo's first comment when he stands on that immaculate, huge stage, he's like, "We need to rewrite the energy equation." And right there, I was like, "That sounds amazing, cool. Please." It was actually really refreshing. And he made this point that in some ways we've been thinking about this incorrectly or incompletely because it's in all of the above. It was really a strong acknowledgement of this all of the above. And he did mention or made a point to stress geothermal. And we were talking before we got on air about some of the misconceptions. But just to level set, in terms of electricity demand, you touched upon it. I think there's this misnomer in the market where it's almost mutually exclusive, right? If you're going to have power demand, then you can't have clean power, and the market is slowly coming to realize that's not necessarily the case. But, and we'll start with you. Can you just touch upon why that's not true and sort of the technological innovation in place to address that?
And then this is really what we spend our days and night thinking about and working on in Baker. You're just describing what we do and what we love and what we are passionate about it, right? We know, I go back to the energy equation. We know there is a demand for energy everywhere. And the obvious ones, obviously, but it's not only that. So world is trying to continue the industrialization. All of a sudden, we realize that centralizing the industry in one place is not a good for anybody. So everybody is trying to reindustrialize. So that's taking energy. AI and data center, obviously, I am on purpose not mentioning it first, but it's the obvious one that everybody is. But it's also people are realizing that it's good, but it has its disadvantage. But also we are not thinking about the rest of the world, right? Most of the energy demand will not come from the developed north or the OECD. It is coming actually from the south, from the east, from the west. So there is a lot that people living level will increasing will bring energy demand, right? So when you see energy demand is there to stay, it's there to increase actually. And one of the things that people are talking about now, how data center needs to be a good citizen, where they don't need to come and take the power from the people. They don't need to come and increase our energy bill, so that people are they don't need to increase the emission, right? So there is a responsibility of the energy demand. Then you look at the industrial outcome. We want to increase industrialization, but we want to reduce emission. We want to get to net zero, which is being a challenging every day. So how do we achieve that? And that is done through cleaning up, bring a clean energy, as clean as you can. And whenever you cannot, then you go at the industries and reduce the carbon footprint of those industries. So that's really where all of the above should be taken into consideration. We cannot be idealistic and purist. We have seen both sides of the equation. We have seen Europe where they said compliance, regulation, all or nothing. We have seen the US who has taken a very business incentive, free market, but then all of a sudden it was working very well, and all of a sudden you cannot rely on the political will. But you have seen some countries like Asia, Australia, China, Japan, took a very pragmatic approach. It's a fit for purpose. Every country, they said, that's our frameworks, that's what we need. Yes, we still need to have regulation across and cross-regulation and all that, but this is what we need to do to get there. And they are making great impact. I mean, everybody knows like China is one of the biggest renewable energy in the world, and they are the source for all the renewable energy. So it goes back to taking us to geothermal, right? Geothermal is one of those few, probably the only, or one of two, if we want to expand the choice a bit, that can fit the energy demand, clean, can achieve what we want to do in the environment, stable, regionalized. People now are trying to avoid this centralized power because it has its disadvantages, whether geopolitical or energy security. Geothermal achieve all of that. You can have it almost everywhere now. It used to be very unique to few places. Still economically expensive, but that's what this collaboration that we are doing with our partner here in XGS, we are trying to solve that economic side of the trilemma equation that we're trying to get.
Yeah, that was one of the things that always drove me insane, is like a lot of this stuff, this is like 2 or 3 years ago, it sounded great, but then the economics just didn't work out. And so the argument was, well, at the end of the day, reliability and affordability have to be prioritized at the top of that list, because otherwise adoption, certainly scale, is not going to be facilitated. So one of the other misconceptions about geothermal that I've at least heard, like, I mean, the first one is it's regionally constrained. You can only do it in certain spots. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I see you chomping at the bit. But also from the perspective of reliability and affordability, I think people associate geothermal, because it's relatively nascent, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's a newer technology, that newer technologies tend to be much more expensive. And we can get into the debate on wind and solar, but a lot of people do associate with wind and solar with more expensive sources. but maybe Ghazal address the perspective of reliability and affordability as it relates to geothermal.
So I'd address it in a little bit different way, but when we started to think about geothermal, and as Ahmad said, it is basically the only choice that it can give us the firm base load power, which also has the green element.
Okay.
So we said we need to address two things. So geothermal has this challenge geographical dependency, which you need heat, abundant water, and certain geology. So these are the three things needs to be top on each other to make sure that you can have the affordable project, right? So we said hard to find needs to be removed. So that is why we said, okay, let's develop a technology and solution and the system that it can be deployed anywhere. The second part, which is geothermal, is a very, very tiny percentage of the total energy market, is because it cannot be financed.
When you say it can't be financed, what do you mean?
Financeability of the geothermal because of the upfront cost and risk traditionally was a challenge. So that is why a scale was never happen. And when a scale is happening, that's the cost reduction is coming into place. And then make sure that your techno-economic works well. So we focus in these two things. So hard to find, hard to finance. So if we can find that solution, so the geothermal has a really great position. So that is why we said at XGS we have this next generation technology, which is a closed loop system. So our thesis is that we need to remove the water from the picture, and we need to remove the geology. I mean, when I say geology, it means certain fracture, porosity, permeability, if you don't want to do a lot of technical term. So we said we are running the water to the very closed loop system. And we realized that the closed loop system has traditionally a lot of technical challenge because rock is a lazy element.
It's the laziest. It's so lazy.
The laziest element. So it cannot transfer the heat. So we developed this material that is going to be 60 times, 10 times, 100 times thermal conductive than the rock.
Okay.
So it brings the heat to the wellbore, if you think about it. And then we have a very closed, pressurized, clean system that the water is circulating into this closed loop and extract the heat and bring it to the surface.
And how new is this technology?
We are deploying that for the first project. So the technology developed in the lab, so we engineering that, and then we applied it at the field scale. So we placed our technology in one of the active geothermal field in California, where they were producing geothermal from the traditional resource, but it was a dry hole. So the well was not producing, so we went to the well, we re-drill it, and we placed the technology, and then we basically measured all the parameters required for the predictability of the system that we are placing. So, and for us, the purpose was this stage. So from the lab, engineering the solution, come to the field scale, and making sure the more important thing for us in terms of when you said affordability, you need to predict it. And you should not have those risks that you can pray for the water to come
Cross
out.
Your fingers? That's not a good strategy?
No, it's not a
People
good
don't
strategy.
like that? Okay.
So we develop a lot of numerical models to see, okay, what would we expect in terms of water temperature? Because anything we need is a hot water.
Right.
And it goes to the turbine, and then it generates power.
Okay.
So we did some blind modeling, right? Because we have the information. And then we measure this information. So we measure the temperature, we measure the flow rate at the surface, and to see how far from our model. So we realized that we don't have a lot of variables that can go wrong.
Okay.
Because there is, I mean, Baker Hughes knows and have a lot of technology. So we have a lot of solution indirectly measure the heat because we only need a hot rock.
So is that how the collaboration sort of originated? It was you sort of brought the math and the modeling, and y'all brought the scale and the horsepower. Or like, give me a backdrop of how the collaboration originated.
I mean, when we started talking, and Ghazal is one of us. She grew up in Baker Hughes, so we had the relationship already. They came to us with their technology. Right, and not to us as here is technology, please help. No, they already had an established. They have already established themselves as a serious project developer for geothermal, not just as a technology company. So they were already very well established. So they come to us as a client, actually.
Okay.
We have a very strong, one of our core is to collaborate with our client to engineer the solution. We are such our culture, our DNA is to engineer solution. As much as obviously we have to standardize and this to get the efficiency, but we love engineering problems. So we started talking about the view. We know closed loop system. We know their weaknesses. We know that they do not work. But when we saw what they are bringing to the table, a new technology. It's not they do not work. They do not work for high power, right? That's. I don't want to offend any of the closed loop technology, but what they shared with us with their technology, it's very promising, right? And we saw they wanted to collaborate. They didn't want to go to the traditional route of, okay, give us your proposal, we'll come back to you. No, there was a will to collaborate. So it was very easy for us.
Okay.
It's like, of course we'll collaborate. This is a dream situation where we can work and we can make an impact and we get it. Is it all done? No, we are working through engineering, but engineering is the best part of the equation, because we know there is a problem, we found a solution, we engineer a solution together, and we get the outcome. So that's where we are today, is that we are solving part of the equation. Go back to the energy equation. We are solving that part where simple, sustainable solution. We are trying to, very reliable, we're trying to make it economical as well, just to solve that trilemma. When we succeed, and I have no doubt in my mind that we will succeed, it will bring a big dimension to the geothermal industry, because geothermal has been around for 50 odd years, right? We're drilling geothermal wells for as long as we have been there. So we know how to drill wells. Right?
Okay. So wait, let's touch upon that. So geothermal's been around 50 years-ish, right? What has kept it from scaling the way that, say, like natural gas has, right? So if you look at like the energy mix map, right, even today as it relates to wind and solar, with all the expansion of renewables, it's still a tiny fraction of the global energy mix. So what was sort of the catalyst that, let's call it, resurrected geothermal? And then maybe what's the potential? Like how big? I've seen estimates, but I would love to hear it from the professionals themselves.
I mean, today it exists, but until a year ago, it was not even mentioned. It was under all others. When you go to this, you just go solar and
with like biomass and like wood.
And there is a reason for that, right?
Okay.
Ghazal told you about financeability. So the upfront cost for geothermal is one of the challenges. A solar or a wind to get a feasibility study, it's I don't want to. Can we mention numbers?
Of course, yeah. Let's do it.
You just put few $100,000 and you already have your due diligence done. Put a weather station, you get things, and boom, you're ready, right? Geothermal, no, it's like oil and gas technical upfront cost. That has stopped people from trying to expand it quickly. Second, as we said, if I want to put a simple example, right? If you're trying to learn two sports, golf, learn from scratch, and tennis, and your objective is to hit the ball, get it to the right place. So in the golf, so you are dealing with a very precise in golf, right?
Right.
You talk to tennis, how easy it is to take the racket and hit it, and hit on the other side. A lot easier, right? And this is what this new technology of geothermal.
People aren't breaking or tennis rackets over their knee, right? Or throwing them in the lake.
Not to cross the ball for the first time, right? This is how the new technology of geothermal is bringing the ease of. It's not easy, is not the right word, but it's enabling this, right? If you have your ceiling, you have a lamp, and that's your target. The new technology is making your target the whole ceiling to find the heat. That's what the new technology is all about. So, and that's why, as Ghazal mentioned it in a technical term, today geothermal rely on finding a reservoir, very similar to oil and gas. All the properties of the reservoir, very similar to oil and gas. Finding a fluid, which is in the oil and gas, it's hydrocarbon. In the geothermal, it's water, and being able to export it and produce it. it's challenging enough in oil and gas. When you add 200 degrees C to this thing, it destroy materials. And you add all the minerals that are in the water underground, because Mother Earth, the water is coming around, is full of resources, but these resources eat metals, right? So it makes it very challenging. That's why it goes. So it's only existed in regional places, part of Asia, the ring fire in Asia, the California, the west side. Now what we are trying to do is to get into the source of this. If you have heat, a little bit of the right geology, which is usually easy, because the deeper you get closer to the core, temperature will go up. So it's just a matter, you'll find it, regardless at what depth. Then the technology that we are bringing, and that XGS is bringing, makes it now easy to produce. And we know oil and gas, it gets depleted, because you are drawing resources out of the ground. Heat doesn't get depleted. Heat is there. So
heat does not get depleted.
No.
Okay.
Because the core of the earth is still there. The temperature is still there. Conventional geothermal, the water gets depleted. So you no longer are producing for too long. They last 20, 30, even that they last 20, 30, 40 years.
Okay.
Now, if you're only getting heat, you are bringing your own bottle of water, you are sending it downhole, it gets heated, it comes back up as a hot water, you use it, you send it back again. You are not throwing it away, you're sending it back. So that's why the word closed loop comes from. And that's what makes it easier. There are different technologies of geothermal. I'm only focusing on the technologies that we are talking about today. So that all of this advancement in technology is why we believe geothermal will take off. There are other technologies, as I said, that I don't want to discard them. They are very good in geothermal as well, that they are bringing results. But and we are part of it as well. We're just trying to bring all of this. They all have more or less some of the fundamentals of independent of the geology. Some of them use more water than others. Some of them use different technology than others. And some of them need more power than others, right? What XGS is bringing is still new. We have seen it in heat, we have not seen it in power, and that's a.
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point. So, like, you're the mathematician, right? So let's go on some of these numbers. I have my little cheat sheet here because I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. So, by 2050, there are estimates that geothermal could meet 15% of global electricity demand. So right now, that's under 1%, right? So you're going from 1 to 15 in, call it, 20 years. And then that equates to be 6,000 terawatt hours per year. Is that a reasonable expectation?
Yeah, I think what we are trying to do here is that the geographic limitation is not there anymore. So basically, heat is everywhere. What we have today, which we never faced it before, the investment community is changing. And because we are addressing this risk and this upfront cost, we have totally different response, because what investor wants to make sure that we have the right capital. We define that capital. I can predict my operational and maintenance for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, because this is how the power purchase agreement is put in place. So if we are really relying on this predictable performance for 20 years, that we can provide the power at a certain capital that we are defining for this project can be scaled up so quickly. So I think the scalability that we are talking about 100 well per year for geothermal, which is how many for oil and gas? 20,000, 30,000 in North America, right? So that's the scale we are talking about, right? We need same amount of drilling and finding that how we can reduce the cost, because there is a cost curve, right? You drill the well and you're decreasing the cost. Anything at the surface level is very well understood, right? If we can bring the hot water to the surface, it's going to the turbine. This is not a new technology. So I think for us, it's really this integration and partnership from resource characterization, that we have a unique technology that we can harvest the heat in more efficient way, to bring the hot water to the surface and integrate with the top side, which is the different type of turbine, right?
Yeah.
So this is, we call it another closed loop type of turbine, which you don't through the water, and it's not steam, it's a different or secondary working fluid, which is more efficient on the power side. So from how much heat we get and how much we generate power, there is efficiency percentage, right? From the thermal load to the electricity production. So I think those numbers we are talking about and the scales that we are envisioning based on the demand, I think it's not...
Give me an example of like why that is a realistic expectation.
Roughly, a megawatt is about $5 million of capex. So
Right.
a gigawatt is a $5 billion of capex. So you do your math, then you're probably right. What you are getting it right.
Okay.
So 100 billion is probably 20 gigawatts, give or take. None of us today know what the energy demand is looking like. Every day it's upgraded, it's upgraded, it's upgraded. The one thing I can tell you, that don't look at the full demand, look at the incremental demand. And geothermal can play a lot bigger than the 15%. I am comfortable to say way bigger than that.
Okay. So give me an example. So you saying it could be much more than 15%. Is that because, once again, the scale is no longer an issue, investors are becoming more comfortable with it, so 15% is no longer pie in the sky, or it's just much more efficient? Like, what is driving the rise of geothermal in that respect?
There is another aspect to that. So we are talking about this scale of power,
Right.
and then we have grid, right?
Yep. That's always...
So the grid part,
You read my mind where I was going with this, by the way. Okay,
so that there
continue.
is so many needs move together. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I mean, if, for example, today Exxon wants to develop a geothermal project at the scale we are doing oil and gas, we can build those multi-billion grids. But the point for geothermal, because it's a firm base load, there's a lot of application that can be remove the grid from the picture and generate power and not wait. So that is the speed up, because we have less constraint to bring those powers online.
If I take a different take at it,
Okay.
right? Why would geothermal play a bigger role, right? First, once you de-risk the technology and the investment and you get it, people will adopt it better, right? And I'll be closing with something else in a second, but look at how renewable and solar grew up, because people de-risked and started getting, and it's done a fantastic job, and it will continue to exist. But now it reached a point where we start seeing the inconvenience or the disadvantage of it, which is grid stability, intermittency, the need for huge power backups, and
building out transmission, distribution, all of the above,
and getting the famous blackout for the Iberian Peninsula in the summer is a very good example. When you don't have the stability of a base load, an oil and gas or whatever that is needed to balance the grid. Utilities or grid engineers, they don't like this direct power. They want this balance with base load, right? So geothermal provide you with that base load. So this is why you will continue doing the solar and wind, because they are fantastic, but you will need to grow a bit more on that base load. That gas is playing a huge role in it today. Geothermal will start playing a big role. Maybe nuclear will grow. Nobody knows if how nuclear will grow, what trajectory they will take, right? Yeah. These are the three base loads that will be there to...
Just to play devil's advocate, for the sake of it, right? One of the things that I see impeding wind and solar more and more, we are very concerned about supply chain resiliency, because the vast majority of the inputs that go into wind and solar are processed in China, right? And we can get into the geopolitical aspect of it later, or over drinks at a different conversation. But in terms of the supply chain, right, I would imagine that not only does Baker have the expertise on that, but what are some of the components of the supply chain relating to geothermal that people should not be as concerned about? Does that question make sense?
So for us, I think the supply chain is really mature on the well construction side, right? So most of our basically our casing and anything that requires to the one single well to be completed. Right now, it's a domestic. So we had another partnership with Valorec, which is the one of the biggest supplier on the tubulars, right? So these tubulars needs to be provided in US. So we have that. When it comes to the surface level, I think we are also in a unique position.
Okay.
Very good position, because we are not competing with the gas turbine.
Okay.
So geothermal turbine, or we call it organic Rankine cycle turbine, which is using different fluid to convert the heat to electricity.
Okay.
So scaling up those and building those unique technology, which is only works for geothermal or other application which we are not competing at the energy, like biomass. So I think we have a very good supply chain ecosystem. But we also need to think about that the scale that we are talking about, how we can really ramp up our project. So there requires collaboration.
Presumably that's where Baker would come into play, right? You have a global footprint, and so not to speak for you, but maybe expand upon, in terms of like the scalability and the supply chain, what are some of the key facts that people should be aware of?
So we do answer the concern about geopolitics, because like Ghazal said, you have the subsurface, which is US is completely self-sufficient in the oil and gas. We use exactly the same technology, same supply chain, right? So that one is covered. On the surface, so far, most of the major player for the surface power are a lot of component made in Europe. There are some Asian supplier.
Okay.
There are some Chinese supplier, but they are not dominant. So will they decide that we will go after, how this is a strategic decision. You can start today, in 15 years you can be, we don't know, but at least for today there is no dependence on I mean, do you say China or
sure.
So I don't want to be political here, but there is no significant dependent on any specific country in the supply chain. Like we manufacture our own turbines in Italy, for instance. So that's there are other places. We manufacture our generators in Europe as well, in the Czech Republic. And so we have this availability of supply chain stability in there. So it's not. So it covers that problem.
And it's not just theoretical. You touched upon it a little bit. I would love to know a little bit more of the specifics in terms of what you're willing to share. You have a project now in New Mexico. So walk me through that particular project.
Yeah, so this is a first of a kind 150 megawatt data center in New Mexico that we are going to.
So not a small data center.
That's not a small data center.
That's not small.
Yeah, and basically we are going to work with the utility PNM and Meta to provide power for the data center through geothermal energy.
Okay.
So the initial discussion with Baker is that, so we have done a lot of resource characterization to understand the heat, the depth, how we need to go from our concept well design to more detailed design. So I think this partnership is making sure we are checking all those theses that we have around the concept to final design. So this is on the subsurface, which is we need to drill these wells, we need to access to the heat, place the technology, and then also we are working on the front engineering, which is anything that needs to be designed and the size and the turbine and how we are going to improve the efficiency. So what I love about Baker Hughes is this, now we call it geo to grid, subsurface to surface, ground to grid. So Baker is in a very unique position to provide the upfront resource characterization, construct the well, and then also connect it to the turbine, and then also connect to the grid. So this is a really interesting integration for us, and it's really reduced the risk for us, right? And it can improve the efficiency both at the engineering level and also our collaboration. So that's what we are super excited about this project.
Yeah, and so Ahmad, Ghazal touched upon it a little bit, but once again, presumably, without repeating what she said, one of the things that I think, particularly the capital markets, will be focused on is reducing uncertainty.
Yes.
So your role at Baker, in addition to the technology, like we get it, it's Baker, but maybe elaborate on some of the aspects or the capabilities that you're bringing to the table to mitigate or even eliminate some of the uncertainties associated with a project of that scale.
So, Dan, those projects, like any energy project, they are very complex.
Yep.
They involve the resource, the underground resource, they involve pipelines, they involve distribution, they involve power plant surface, with the target is to produce megawatt hours, right? A traditional geothermal or any power will include so many suppliers. Different people, different third parties, different engineers, right? In oil and gas, oil companies has mastered this. They are very good system integrators. They are so efficient and it works, right? Geothermal and new energy in general, they're still new.
Right.
So no one has mastered the system integration yet, right? So you end up with multiple third-party supplier that the workflow is not very well defined. Data passing from one to another is, let's call it manual, but you know what I mean. It's like it's not a digitized workflow.
Right.
It's still floppy disks or
I was going to say fax machine, but floppy disk.
Floppy disk, if you want to show your age or show your age,
playing Oregon Trail on the floppy disk.
And guess what? Each one of these suppliers will have their safety margin before and their safety margin after. So those handoffs are not ideal. Add up those margins, you end up with a project that is either running over budget or over spec or under deliver with power. That engineering process, when it's done separately, you iterate it 1 to 4 or 5 times to get the answer. What we do, we have been lucky or good, or a combination of both, that we have seen it early. We have realized that we are good at the subsurface. We are good at the mystery. We are good at the surface. So let's get that workflow digitized. Let's get it automated. Let's get the engineering done at the same time. Let's not wait for till the wells are drilled and then here is the well data, go and design. And because we have digitized it, you end up doing millions of iteration of improvement of the process. So all of a sudden we can reduce the risk before we put a shovel in the ground, right? And we get it. We don't overspec, we don't underspec, we get it right, we get the economies right, and we tell you how the chance of success. It's a techno-economical discussion, and then we talked about affordability, and geothermal suffer from this affordability. So we believe we reduce that risk. We bring this certainty and assurance to those projects early in advance. So like XGS can design their plant and can sign contracts with the Metas of the world with enough confidence that they can deliver.
Y'all are making it sound really, really easy. Like, and why isn't this just picking up steam? And you did touch upon some of the barriers, like investability, but it sounds like that is quickly becoming or being overcome. Like, give me a sense of the remaining barriers in place that have to be addressed that would facilitate global scale. Right now we're talking about very regional specific, like New Mexico, or I'd imagine like Texas or California, but clearly it sounds like this could, I don't want to say easily, but it could potentially be scaled globally. Let's just relegate it to like the 2 or 3 barriers that remain in place that have to be addressed. It's a big one, huh? It's a big question.
Yeah, I think globally, if you think about geothermal specific, right? If Ahmad touched on that, so we call it rings of the fire, which is starting from Hawaii.
You call it rings of fire?
Yes, those are the traditional location for geothermal development. Yeah. So in US, I mean, all the Western US, and these are low-hanging fruit because they have a hot, dry rock, shallow, so we can harvest the heat and generate power. Internationally, I was privileged when I was with Baker. I traveled all of these places, so we developed a project in the Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, which is a different stage, Africa. Even we are talking about the Middle East right now. If you think about Saudi, this Red Sea area, right? And this hot rock, which is, we can harvest it, right? Besides gas and oil that we are developing, there's a good resource for geothermal development. So we see a lot of movement around the traditional locations that they are not producing at the nameplate capacity. So basically, they build a power plant for 300 megawatt, let's put that number, and now they are at 50% capacity.
Right.
So the resource decline. So I think because of the resources are super attractive and very hot and very shallow, I think we are seeing those project is going to pick up very early.
Okay.
Because these are very, very mature sites, so we have a lot of knowledge.
So is one of the barriers then just awareness? Like it sounds like the learning curve has to...
There is multiple. So technically, I think there is one on the technical side. Then the policy, right? I think with feed and tariff in a lot of locations, this project is going to be really profitable. And then supply chain. So for example, when we are talking about certain region, which we know it is really good for geothermal, but the supply chain might not ready, or we don't have the local setup like certain locations to make this project quickly pick up. That is what I see right now. What is your thought?
Technology obviously is there. So the thermal conductivity, but also we will need to go and drill deeper and hotter, right?
Okay.
That's for oil and gas, and that's for geothermal, right? That one is still challenged because remember, temperature destroy materials. Right. So that is still a challenge. So it's the technology, but we'll get there. Technologies we are confident we'll get there. The other one is in my mind is when you look at the big stakeholder in this scaling are the utilities and the power provider.
Yeah.
They have not bought into this yet. They are very curious. Right? Most of the projects that are talking geothermal are behind the meter. Behind the meter is just a temporary solution for a bigger problem, but it creates its own challenges.
Behind the meter is like you dip your toe into the water, right? You're not going head first into the pool.
And it will create future, and we are realizing that now. Not we, but everybody realizes it. So it's a temporary solution. So eventually, the utilities and the power providers of the US and of the world need to put this in their plan. Today, it's still not. They are getting curious. A year ago or 2 years ago, they were not even interested, right? Except the Californias of the world and very regionalized, as we know. So when we get to that point, when they get confidence with those projects, with other projects, like there are some successful geothermal companies today. I mean, Fervo is they're doing a great job, and they are a great company. Different type of technologies, but it's very successful as well, right? Once we get these, we need more than one bird singing, so we can we realize that we are in the spring. So that will come. So it's just a matter of when. The day we see the utilities companies coming to us and curious, and then putting us in the queue for the grid, this will scale. This will scale. Will become a mainstream, which will happen.
That's sort of the truth. Yeah. I mean, so I think I know what the answer is going to be. If you were to put on or whip out your crystal ball and look out 10, 20 years, like where are we as it relates to geothermal capabilities?
I think we have a lot of geothermal power plant that providing a lot of clean baseload firm power, and we are going to have this ecosystem, right? We are not. We have other renewable, we have fossil fuel, we have geothermal, but I think with the scale that we are talking about, based on the demand, I am hoping that we are talking about 6 terawatt. You mentioned at the beginning. So what was that number? So we are going. That's how we see. I mean, all of us are trying to bring this power online fast and quick. But the time for the most of the discussion we have, it's the time to power, which means how can we do these things up to 2030? How many of these megawatt can come from geothermal?
Let me ask the question differently then, right? Because that was a little bit open-ended. Like, in Ahmad, I'll start with you. Like, let's go just out 10 years. Let's go out a decade. What will success look like, right? What's the scenario where you say, like, yeah, that was amazing, or if we don't attain this, then it's not a failure, but not in terms of it doesn't live up to expectations or what we thought. Like, what does success look like?
Let me go back to the history of our energy story in the world, right? So 2011, the US was importing hydrocarbon from the Middle East, from Africa, from everywhere in the world.
Right.
We were at the beginning of the unconventional revolution. Everybody was saying, oh, this is exciting.
Right.
But when they were saying US will become independent, people were laughing. Come on, this is... It was unheard. It was ridiculized as a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at where we are today. I was in an event about European energy, and I looked at the LNG. How many LNG stations today? The whole north, west, and south are all coming from the US, right? So US is the biggest supplier. So I believe we are in 2011 for the geothermal.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? When we get more of XGS, more entrepreneurial. Look who made the unconventional revolution. It's entrepreneurial, oil and gas pioneers, right?
Yep.
Only in US that you can get this, right? Obviously, there will be international because governments are behind it. But this is when what will make the difference.
Right. Speed and scale was.
What success will look like, as I told you, when all the new energy coming. 25%, 50% of the new energy that is coming into the grid becomes geothermal is part of the plan, right? Will we get there? Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, guess 15 years as I just go back to the unconventional.
No, it is a good point. Like we have this tendency, particularly in the Western economies, certainly in the United States, of like this sort of strategic ADD. We forget that it was only, to your point, about a decade ago where people would laugh in your face, literally, when you're like, hey, the U.S. is going energy independent. You're like, yeah, okay. And then now it's like, yeah, we're totally independent. Like, what's the problem? Do you anticipate, Ghazal, this is for you, once again, you're the mathematician. Do you anticipate the, so here, I'll back up a little bit. The vast majority of the conversations that I have, as it relates to sort of the evolution of the energy mix, right? For a developing economy to go through their own respective industrial revolution, there is a school of thought, which I don't think is too controversial, is that they have to go from, wood and biomass to coal to natural gas transition to some sort of nuclear. Do you think it's in the realm of possibility, given the trajectory of the technology, that developing economies can somehow sort of skip steps? You see what I'm saying? Not go through that phase. Does geothermal have that kind of potential and capability?
I think geothermal has the different position. I mean, nuclear is great because it's also baseload, but I think geothermal is in a very unique position because you still have you need the same skill set and the technology from oil and gas, right? And it's not new, but you can really offer up a different landscape of energy. So to me, what Ahmad said is that we are exactly in the moment where shale gas, shale oil started. And with every single bit of technology, it was cheaper, faster. And today we are independent, right? So geothermal has the same thing, but adding more energy security, right? Independency. More better or green resident on the grid, right? So many aspects that geothermal can provide, which is very unique, and I think this should be part of it, so we should not skip it.
Okay, but so sort of back, like let's take Western Africa, for example, right? What do they have to do in particular to get geothermal scaled? Like, is it this massive infrastructure undertaking, or is it more likely that they go through like this coal to nuclear sort of timeline and then scale? Like, do you see what I'm trying to say? Like, we spend a lot of time on the Western economies, rightfully so, but like I'm in this particular question certainly focused on like how do developing economies, like how do they get access to this technology?
So geothermal has one advantage.
Okay.
It can be regionalized. You don't need a huge grid. You can build a microgrid. You can get your sources within a certain region. So in the sense, if one of the African or whatever, any country that has the resource, it can easily scale it up.
Well, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate the time. I certainly learned a boatload. I was always, honestly, a secret geothermal fan. You guys have just sort of justified why I'm the fan. I really thank you for the time. This was great.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks to you, Dan.
Thanks.
You did amazing.
Yeah, that was great.